Coming up, I'll tell you why you need a layoff safety net, and I'll explain it. And then, new data. Managers are saying what they think about working with Gen Z, and it's not so good. But I'll coach you up, leaders. Let's go. Helping you win at work so you're winning at life with some common sense. Teaching and interpreting of what's going on in the world today that is holding you back from making the money you desire and living the life that you desire. I'm Ken. Let's go. All right, so you hear about layoffs all the time because it's what makes you click on the story. Recession being reported, probably going to happen fourth quarter of 2023. A lot of economists are saying it's a certainty. May not be a bad recession, but certainly a mild one in 2024. Who knows? Nobody knows. Economists are just as accurate as the weatherman. But let's always be prepared, shall we? Because layoffs happen. You cannot control it, but you can control what you do in the wake of a layoff. So let's talk about a safety net. Safety nets are just that. Safety nets protect us from harm. When there's a safety net, I can't die and I can't get too badly hurt. Now, I talk a lot about how much I love golf. I'm not very good at it, but I do enjoy the sport. And I also enjoy Topgolf. I was just at a fundraiser recently in Nashville, and there's some hilarious videos on Topgolf of people doing really bad things, silly things. But the first time I went to Topgolf and I saw the second, third, and fourth level, I was thinking to myself, man, this is dangerous. And then as I got closer to the golf mat, I saw a safety net. And boy, oh boy, did Topgolf know what they were doing. Watch this. Oh boy, just right off the old edge there. And you could see her pride is hurt. May have scraped her knee a little bit, but she's okay. Thank God for the safety net, right? It's like, whoopsie. All right, so, by the way, you can learn how to swing a golf club and not do that. However, you cannot control when economic things happen or bad decisions are made in a company, you get laid off. So let's talk about a safety net. There's two types of safety nets that I've addressed on the show. There's two safety nets. One, a financial safety net, that emergency fund. But more importantly, I don't want you eating up that emergency fund if you can go work somewhere else. So that's a mindset to go, I'm going to have savings enough to kind of make it through a couple weeks. And I'm going to be able to adapt my budget, my lifestyle, because I've learned how to do it. And I'm going to go work. Anything to just keep money coming in the door. So that's the financial safety net. But I think more importantly is the emotional safety net, because getting laid off or fired is devastating. And if you don't have an emotional safety net for when this happens, because it's going to happen to most of us, it can affect you so much emotionally that you don't have the ability to function properly, to be able to activate a financial safety net plan and go work somewhere else because you're devastated. So I want to talk about the emotional safety net that you need to have in place. Because job loss is one of the top 10 most stressful life events according to Holmes-Rahe stress test. It's used by the American Institute of Stress. Now, that's kind of mild in the way they put that. But the data says, psychological data, says that the stress, the trauma from losing your job is right up there with the stress and trauma of losing a loved one, divorce, or even being jailed. Can you imagine? Same effect on your mind and your body. So we need an emotional safety net. So I think there's 4 people that constitute your safety net. These are people, these are archetypes that I'll go through for you. And if you've got these people in your life, And by the way, these 4 people, this is going to be so valuable for you in other areas of trauma. So it doesn't have to be job loss. You lose a loved one, you go through divorce. You need these 4 people in your life. These 4 people create an emotional safety net that when something like a layoff happens to you, you aren't destroyed. The first one is the comforter. Now, these are people who are just naturally really high on empathy. They got great empathy. It's just oozing out of them. They always can put themselves in other people's shoes. And because of that high level of empathy, they also have high levels of compassion. They're the caretakers of life. They just are great at seeing, hearing, and caring for people. And you need those people. You got some people in your life that you know who I'm talking about. They're just natural comforters. They're the ones you go to when you're at your lowest, when you're hurting the deepest. The second person you need in your life as a part of your emotional safety net is the comedian. Now, the comedian is different than the comforter in that the comforter is the one who sits and you could see your pain on their face and they're caring, loving, kind, listening, seeing you. Well, a comedian is a whole different deal. They take your mind off of all the pain. See, the comforter sits with you in the pain. Picture your pain, your trauma like a baby pool. You parents out there, you remember sitting in a baby pool with your toddler for the first time? Yeah, you're just sitting in there with them, make sure they don't drown. They don't harm themselves. See, that's the comforter. They sit in the baby pool and they soak in the moment, the pain with you. The comedian pulls you out of the baby pool. They're like, hey, jump on my bike. Let's go. Now, some of you millennials, or maybe all of you millennials and Gen Zers, have no idea what it's like to ride on the handlebars of your friend's bike. But we did that kind of crazy stuff back in the day. It was fun. Took your mind off everything. It was exhilarating. That's what the comedian does. They make you laugh. It's a medicine to the soul. The third person is the cheerleader. Now, this is the person you've soaked in the pain with the comforter. You've been distracted and lifted by the comedian. But the cheerleader now is going, get back out there. You got this, man. It happened to me. It's happened to them. You got this. They're like the golden retriever. They're just like, let's go, let's go, let's go. Let's go for a walk. Come on. Let's get back out. Come on. Let's go. And then finally, the coach. This is deeper. The comforter sat with you and soothed you. The comedian distracted you and lifted you. The cheerleader praises you and pushes you back out. And now the coach instructs you and guides you to learn from what you've just been through, to harness the defeat so that you get more victories. That's what the coach does. They're watching the game tape. They go back in and go, let's see what we can learn from the film here so that the next time we don't repeat that problem. We don't allow ourselves to be manipulated or treated poorly. Those are the 4 people: the comforter, the comedian, the cheerleader, and the coach. They're your emotional safety net so that when the layoff or the firing happens, it's just temporary.
Do you know what you were born to do? In order to get hired at a job you love, you need to get clear on your talent, passion, and mission. That's why our team created the Career Clarity Guide. In just a few minutes, this free tool will walk you through a process to discover what you do best, that's your talent, the work you love to do, that's your passion, and the results that matter to you, your mission. Then you'll feel more confident throughout the job search process. To get started, go to kencoleman.com/clarity.
Well, we're bringing you some common sense in a world that doesn't have a whole lot of it. And we're doing it in the area of work because winning in your work is going to give you the greatest chance to win in your life. Financially, emotionally, mentally, relationally. If your work life sucks, it's dragging the rest of those areas down, and you want freedom. You want freedom to live the life that you desire. And so I want to be your guide and warn you, guide you, coach you, cheer you on. If you're enjoying the show via podcast, would you give us a follow? It's now the thing to do. Follow us and give us a 5-star review. That helps us grow. And feel free to share an episode. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, like the video that you're watching and hit subscribe and share as well. Also, to you parents out there, you're feeling the pressure. Your kids are getting high school age. They're in high school. They're nearing college. It's a big decision, and culture has told you the kiddo's got to pick the right college, pick the right major, and then everything's going to fall in place. Well, that's simply not true. And you're being pressured to make a decision with them, help them make a decision that could cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars, certainly tens of thousands of dollars that they may not be able to afford. You and your family can't afford. But see, none of that stuff that we're talking about right there has anything to do with their uniqueness and the role that they were created to fill. And you as their parents know them better than anybody else. Help them know themselves. Are they too young to figure out their future? No. But there's a process. And so I have taken what I teach on this show and we've created the curriculum for students. It's a home study. You can guide them along. They can do it themselves. If they want to figure out their uniqueness, how they are put together, and what a purposeful life at work looks like for them. It's called Foundations in Career Discovery. I'm teaching. We have a great group of students that I talk with throughout in a living room conversation. The course is only $49.99 for one student for 1 year. You can add an additional student for $30 a year. It comes with all kinds of supports for you, mom and dad, as their teacher. You get a teacher account where I encourage you and equip you how to have these conversations. Additional resources for you, the teacher, student progress tracking, and a grade book. Each student will get free access also to the Get Clear assessment that has been taken by tens and tens of thousands of people, and we now have the student version for them. You can also purchase up to 10 students per account. All the details, kencoleman.com/student, kencoleman.com/student. All right, speaking of young people, new data here. 3 in 4 managers, specifically 74%. Of managers and business leaders said Gen Z is the most challenging generation to work with. This from new data from resumebuilder.com. They published this survey last week. About 40% of those leaders and managers said it's because people in this age group, they're talking about Gen Z, lack technological skills. Now, this was a head scratcher for me. Really? I would think this is a very tech savvy demographic. I'm telling you, in my house, my kids are way more technology advanced than I am. But, who knows? That's a curious statement. But it's not as relevant as the other data. The same proportion of managers, 40%, feel that Gen Z employees lack motivation and get easily distracted. Really? Now, again, Gen Z, these are kids born between 97 and 2012. So they quote Stacy Holler, who's the chief career advisor at resumebuilder.com, and she says, as a result of COVID-19 and remote education, it's possible that Gen Zers lack the foundation to be more successful than older generations in entry-level positions. God bless you, Stacy. You're wrong. It has nothing to do with COVID-19 and remote education. COVID-19 that led to remote education in large portions of the United States has led to depression and isolation and kids falling behind in our assembly line education process. That you can blame on remote school by a bunch of scaredy cat leaders who followed along with the power players who are now admitting each and every day that this stuff didn't work. I'll give you an example. Fauci on CNN today said, the masks are marginal. Now, the really good masks, of course, those are great. Well, yeah. But the masks, the gaiters that everybody wore, that Fauci and all the governors and all the senators and all the just absolutely feckless leaders who were scared to challenge anything with common sense, told your kids they had to wear a mask, and now he's saying they were maybe 10% effective. He'll change that 10 months from now. That's how it affected. COVID affected kids with isolation and awkwardness around all this crap that we now see didn't do anything at all. That's not my point. But I thought I'd throw a little common sense at you anyway. You know why? Because you need to start thinking for yourself. Just because your governor or your mayor or your senator or the president or the news anchor says it doesn't mean it's right. Can I remind everybody for a moment while I'm on a rant that most of the educated people in the world in a certain time period of history said the world was flat. And they thought Christopher Columbus was going to sail off the edge of the world into a million splinters. So can I just tell you folks, why don't you challenge the process? Jeez. I'm not going to say it. I got to keep going. So Stacy's wrong. It's not COVID-19 and remote education that make Gen Zers less successful than older generations in entry-level positions. You know what it is? It's smartphones and social media that make these kids less prepared. What do I mean? Well, the data says that they're lacking skills as it relates to interpersonal interaction, and they're easily distracted. You know why? Because of Snapchat and TikTok and Instagram. They are constantly getting updates, infusions into their system. Right? The infusion. It's like, hey, oh yeah, got my hit, my latest update, the latest thing. And so they're so distracted because they're used to getting something new that entertains them every 5 seconds. So now you're going to take their phone away and they got to work and be focused for 30 minutes? Folks, we've conditioned these kids. Now, here's the good news. You can recondition their brain. About 30% of the respondents said they prefer to work with Gen X, and about 4% said they preferred to work with baby boomers. Well, I'm sorry. You got to lead who you got, leaders. About 27% of those leaders surveyed said they fired a Gen Zer in their first month. And one of the reasons, 12% said they fired a Gen Z employee because they were too easily offended. But again, you know why they're so offended? Because their parents have protected their feelings their whole life. I don't want Johnny to feel bad, so I'm going to pull him from this school. Uh-oh. I don't like it when you, Mrs. Fairburn, challenge Johnny from talking too much in class. Your tone wasn't great. Well, her tone wasn't great because she's frustrated because your kid won't shut his mouth and behave. Why don't you tell Johnny to behave? And if he doesn't, you're going to take his phone away for a month. Watch Johnny start to shut his mouth in the classroom, Mom. But no, you attack the teacher. So now Johnny becomes 21 and he goes to work. And he's distracting his fellow employee, and his boss goes, hey, Johnny, get to work. And Johnny goes, I don't like the way you talk to me because every time my teacher talked to me this way, my mom came in and fixed it. They're so sensitive because they've been parented poorly. They're so distracted because they've been allowed to roam on social media. Hey, leaders, welcome. You shouldn't be firing them. You should be doubling down and training them and guiding them, coaching them. You got to rewire them or else you're not going to have anybody to hire. Get over it, leaders.
Are you wondering if you should leave your current job or stay put? You're not alone. That's why we created the Should I Quit My Job quiz. In just 5 minutes or less, this quiz will help you determine if you're at the right company and if you're in the right role. If you need to make a move, you'll even get practical next steps to keep you moving forward. Listen, stuck is a choice, and life is too short not to do what you were created to do. To take the quiz, go to kencoleman.com/quiz.
All right, wake up, parents, leaders. I'm warning you now that this is... I'm going to step on some toes here, but I'm going to tell you what we need to do. I mean, we got leaders that are hand-wringing right now. They're clutching their pearls. What are we going to do about Gen Z? They're just so difficult. Okay. Folks, this is called leadership. Leadership is about dealing with difficult scenarios. Leadership is about finding a better way forward. So there's your setup. You know what's sad about this, Alex, is we got all of this Gen Z stuff I'm about to unpack, and then we got really weak leaders who don't know how to do anything about it. So I'm going to try to meet you in the middle. This is a Yahoo article. The new 9 to 5 starts at 6 p.m. for many Gen Zers and millennials. And they'll walk out on employers who don't accommodate their schedule. What? This is a headline. What do you mean? They're going to just walk out. Okay, great. Go. Walk out. Let's see how that works out for you. Leaders, it's time for you to draw a line in the sand. If you don't know where that comes from, look up the story of the Alamo. Colonel William Travis pulls his saber out, draws a line in the sand, and says, here's the deal. We're surrounded. We're surrounded. General Santa Anna's army is going to attack. They have us mightily outnumbered. It doesn't appear as though Sam Houston's army is going to get to us, but we will defend the post. I will defend the post. We will fight to the death. Who's with me? And he draws a line in the sand. I tell you that story, leaders, because this is your moment to draw a line in the sand and go, I'm surrounded by a culture that's broken, a culture that has been fostered by helicopter parents who care more about their kids feeling good than teaching their kids to do good. Uh-oh. We have produced working adults who their entire life they have been rewarded for showing up. They lost all 10 of their soccer games, and yet you wouldn't know it at the season-ending party where they were given trophies, cupcakes, juice boxes, celebrated for utter failure. Can I just tell you? Parents, you know that when you go 0-10, it sucks. Why don't you let them feel it? Well, it's just about them having fun. Well, I got news for you. Winning is fun. Losing sucks. You want your kids to feel good? Teach them how to do good. Because the more good you do, the more good results you put out in the world. The more good results you put out in the world, it tends to follow with more dollars. I feel pretty fantastic at the end of my workday. And if I have a day that sucks, I'm learning something from it. And I don't want to repeat that again. Well, here we go. The new 9 to 5 starts at 6 p.m. for many Gen Zers and millennials. Adobe conducted a study of 5,000 workers across the globe, including the United Kingdom, United States, and Japan, to find out when different age groups are most productive. It found that the youngest generation of workers, Gen Z, is over 3 times more likely to prefer logging into their laptops to work well into the night than the oldest generation of workers. Well, that's not like, I would want my money back if I paid for this study, if that's what we're talking about. Well, of course they're that way. I go to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock because I'm middle-aged. When I was in college, I stayed up till 2 or 3 in the morning. I don't know why we're doing studies like this. It found that just 6% of boomers claim to be the most productive from 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. Of course, they're boomers. They've already watched Murder, She Wrote and Matlock, and they're now ready for bed. Leave them alone. The percentage jumped to 26% for Gen Z. They're most productive from 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. Again, it's because they're young. It's not good for them, just like it's not good for me, but their bodies can handle it better than my body can. I don't have any shame in that. All right. But this is now, it's affecting their work preferences. As remote working becomes increasingly the norm, and with Gen Z set to take up 25% of the workforce by 2025, could we see businesses shifting their working hours later to accommodate young night owls? Maybe. But then they're going to want a different work schedule when they hit their early 30s. And they're like, this is for the birds. I don't want to do this. I want some sleep. I want to be up when the rest of the world is moving. Now, let me just tell you this. Remote work is increasing as it relates to hybrid work, but we're seeing remote work decrease in the United States. The jury's out on if fully remote work is going to be widely adopted. 70% of young workers said they would quit their job in favor of one with more control over their work schedule. Meanwhile, 2/3 would change their jobs for the option to work remotely. Great. You can want that all you like. I want a Lamborghini. Any of you listening or watching that would like to gift me a Lamborghini? Fantastic. Thank you very much. But I'm not going to just keep quitting everything until I get a Lamborghini. I can want things that I can't always have. 2/3 would change their job to work remotely. Great, but remote jobs are decreasing. So what are you going to do, Snowflake? You going to quit and wait for the smaller percentage of remote jobs to open up? How's that going to work out for you? Financially, emotionally, mentally, relationally, physically. Younger generations of employees are issuing an unspoken mandate of sorts to companies that workplace and schedule flexibility are essential not only to attracting and retaining them, but to ensuring they can work effectively, researchers say. Well, fine. They could say it all they want to. Yet, according to the research, only 19% of businesses in the U.S., 22% in the UK, 12% in Japan offer flexible working hours. So you can want it all you want to, but if the opportunity's not there, Snowflake, you still have to go to work. Leaders aren't going to just capitulate because you want them to. You lose. This idea that you're going to demand it and get it, well, it's not necessarily there. But let me tell you how leaders have missed the boat on this, taking a stronger stand. This is another story. And I'm only sharing this for about 2 minutes, Alex, because my blood pressure would get unhealthy. Headline from Business Insider. Quiet rooms are being built by companies to help employees relax and decompress on the clock. Gone are the days of the basic nap and meditation room. I don't even remember that. Now workplaces are installing quiet rooms designed to help staffers cope with overstimulation from open offices in today's post-pandemic workplace. Am I relaxing you guys enough? At Adobe, staffers can unwind in craft rooms or private music spaces, and the company also is developing quiet rooms where staffers can recharge if they feel overwhelmed at the office. Hey, Eric Klein, Adobe's head of global workplace experience. Hey, Eric, why don't you kill the music rooms, the craft rooms, and the quiet rooms, Eric? And how about, Eric, you figure out why everybody's so freaking overwhelmed? Is it because they're weak? Because they've been coddled? That means they need a leader to train them and coach them up and show them that they can do hard things? Or is it, Eric, that you have a crappy workplace culture and you're overwhelming them, or your culture and your poor leaders are overwhelming them, and maybe you need to address the leadership problems that are creating overwhelming environments? It's like someone presenting a broken leg at the doctor, and instead of the doctor figuring out where the break is and what we're going to do to fix it, they just go, here's a raft and a jug of sweet tea. Go sit in the pool today and just take the weight off the leg. This is ridiculous, leaders. You don't need craft rooms and music rooms and quiet rooms. You need to teach people how to do hard things and love them and value them on the way. And they'll develop resilience and grit. And then you need to treat people the right way where they're not so freaking overwhelmed.
Did you know that recruiters take an average of 6 seconds to scan a resume? And that's if they ever see it in the first place. In fact, 75% of resumes are rejected before reaching a hiring manager. Listen, folks, if you want to get hired, you've got to make your resume worth noticing. That's why we created How to Write the Perfect Resume. This free guide will walk you through the 5 steps to stand out in the hiring process to get you your dream job. If you want to get started, go to kencoleman.com/resume.
Welcome back to the Ken Coleman Show. It's time to coach some people up. If you'd like to be coached, you can call in 844-747-2577. Leave a voicemail. You can also email the show, ask@kencoleman.com. Let's go to Ryan now, who's on the line in Portland, Oregon. Ryan, you're on the Ken Coleman Show.
Hi, Ken. How are you doing?
I'm living the dream, Ryan. What's up?
Well, my current job has become an increasingly toxic work culture. I had to report my boss for something, and it turns out he put in his resignation this last week, and I've been acting in capacity for him. And because of the way that I reported him, it's just there's been a lot of gossip going on, and so I have applied for another position. It's about an hour away from my home.
You broke up. You're breaking up, Ryan. You applied for a new position, and then what?
And it pays quite a bit more. But it's a longer commute, probably more hours.
How many more hours?
Probably 5 to 10 more hours a week.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your question?
Well, my current job, even though it's toxic, I'm kind of wondering if I should just stick it out because they will pay for my me to finish my grad school.
Is it toxic? Is it toxic because of this leader who you reported, or is it toxic above the leader?
It's because of the leader that I reported.
But he's gone.
True.
And you said that there were rumors going around. What is that all about?
Well, it was something where some people didn't agree with the way that I reported him. I think they kind of assumed that I am trying to take his position. You know?
But let me ask you this. Was it the right thing to report him?
Yes.
Are you glad you did?
I am, yeah.
Are you glad he's gone?
Well, I'm sad, but I'm also relieved.
Okay, we'll meet in the middle and say you are. All right?
Okay.
So the point is that you're going to have to deal with this. You did what was right, and when we do what is right, you're going to have people who criticize us. So you got to remind yourself when you hear people gossiping or stuff gets back to you, you did what was right. And if you believe that you did what was right, you have to focus on that. And so you have to decide, can you take that? Can you put up with it? And if you can, and it is better for your life to stay in this current position for a season until the grad stuff is paid off, then I would stay. That's a huge benefit for you. How much longer before you finish?
I'm taking it at kind of a slower pace, so probably 2 years.
All right. If he was the reason it's toxic, I would certainly not make any move until we see how things shake out now that he's gone, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So let's not assume it's going to be toxic anymore if we got rid of the cancer. That's number one. Number two, this is a huge opportunity for you to further yourself. And so we have to wait to see if it's not toxic, right? So normally we just wait anyway to see what it's like. Number two, it's advantageous to you to stay there to get your grad work taken care of, and then you step onto the next rung of the ladder. So those are 2 reasons to wait. Now, if you find out that the toxicity was above him and it's still that way, or it becomes in any way unbearable for you. But if I were you in your position, I would not take a job that's going to add more commute to my life. It's too far away. That has a lot of negative impacts on you and your family. So I wouldn't do that one. So the current job that's been offered to you, it doesn't make any sense at all based on what you've told me. So I wouldn't take it. What I would do is wait to see how things improve. I think you're tough enough, and I think you should develop some grit and some tough skin and get over what everybody's saying about you that's the naysayers, because my guess is you have a lot of support as well.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag. Yeah, I think there's maybe just a coup of people.
Well, that's fine. Who cares?
Don't like me.
Who cares? Who cares? Yeah. You know what? I don't like you either. Why isn't it okay for us to do that as adults? You don't have to be mean to them, but who cares what they think? I'd stay for now, and if it's doable, I'd stay for the 2 years, and that's when I'd hit the eject button once we get done with the grad program and then can find something else.
According to Glassdoor, the average job offer attracts over 250 applicants. If you've made it to the interview, you've already made a great impression. So now is the time to showcase how you are the best choice for the role. That's why we created How to Win the Interview. This free guide will walk you through the 5 strategies to help you stand out amongst the competition. With just some intentionality, you can prepare yourself to win the interview. Go to kencoleman.com/interview.
All right, folks, in Dallas, Texas, surrounding areas, you got one more day to jump in to our career breakthrough event. Who is this event for? It is for someone who just is sitting right now going, professionally and financially, there's a huge gap, or certainly a gap that's bothering me, between where I am now and where I want to be. And you've been overlooked, you've been rejected, you're dealing with some confusion, a lack of ideas, or you got the idea, but you don't know what the execution looks like to get there. My event is for you. It's I'll be out there solo. It's going to be great. Dallas, Texas, kencoleman.com/events. Dallas, Texas, May 23rd, coming at you. And you can still get the few tickets left. You can jump in now. All the details, kencoleman.com/events. I'll be speaking as well as doing interventions in the crowd. And it's been magical at all of our stops. Great things happening. So I'd love to see you there. Bring a friend. We got a couples discount, and that'll work if you want to bring a friend as well. Family member that needs some breakthrough. kencoleman.com/events coming to you. Dallas, Texas, May 23rd. All right, Melissa's on the line in Oakland, California. Melissa, you're on the Ken Coleman Show.
Hi, Ken. Thank you for taking the call.
Well, thank you for calling. What's up?
Yeah. I love your segment on no job is secure, because that's exactly what happened to me. So I'm a librarian, and I worked real hard from 2011 to 2015 to get my graduate degree and student loan debt and all that stuff. And I've also been working at a higher ed university for about 20 plus years, 15 of which were in admin. And I was really tired of admin. So I went back to grad school to get, some other type of degree, and I landed a dream job. It was great. I worked in an archive, and I really enjoyed everything I was doing. There was an admin component, but mostly my supervisor was really encouraging for me to learn archival skills and develop my librarianship. But what happened was, in about 6 years into the role, we hired some new employees, and one of them I have known since the time I started working there. She knew me. We always had a good rapport. And the other two were really new to me, one of which I later came to find out was kind of a troublemaker. And my supervisor wasn't around very much, and they were coming to me with questions because I was the admin person, and I was getting all this frustration that they were having. At the same time, I was feeling really stressed about some personal issues that were going on. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to go to my boss's supervisor and say what's going on. And, hopefully there will be some resolution. Well, she asked for certain names of who was telling me what. So I did. tell them. And one of them, the person that was kind of the problem employee, was coming to me with concerns about the other person who I know possibly flirting. There was a question of flirtation with a supervisor.
Between who?
Between the person that I know and my former supervisor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to nip that in the bud. So when I was talking to his supervisor, my boss's supervisor, that was one of the things I shared. Well, it came around, his supervisor talked to him, and then it came around that I was the one that started the rumor, to the point where I had gotten a harassment charge brought against me, and I had to go to the ombudsperson, had to talk with an independent investigator. This has never happened to me before.
Right.
And it finally came back as, there was no harassment. It was a case of gossip. I got the resources for gossip and let it all go. So I was thinking, okay, there's some feelings hurt, but I'm going to try and repair it. I apologized. And unbeknownst to me, all of a sudden I got this email that said, hey, we're going to welcome you into this other role as a cataloger, which is, librarian work as well. So I was shocked, but I said, well, okay, that sounds good. And then later, the department that I was working, the larger department, they reneged on that, and they put me into an admin role. Higher pay, much better title, but I worked really hard in grad school to get out of that work.
All right. So I've only got now about 5 minutes with you. So what's the question and how can I help?
Okay. So two questions, two parts. One is, how do I get over being ostracized and getting over my anger? Because I really don't even want to interact with a lot of people now, which is totally not my character. And how do I encourage myself to go into looking for archival work, even though I don't have all the experience that other people do? And, or do I just stick out this admin work? I have 5 years to retirement and I have a pension. So.
Okay. All right. So let's take the first question. How do you get over
it?
You're going to have to take some personal responsibility on this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that you gossiped, because the technical definition of gossip is you heard from one coworker about this flirtation, and then you would have told 5 or 7 other coworkers. You technically went to leadership with this.
Yeah.
Based on what you told me.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't know how much facts you had, and I'm not sure it's your responsibility to go above your leader's head on this.
Yeah.
If it's sexual harassment and it's harmful and we have clear-cut evidence, I think you blow the whistle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to try this. It's not like I'm Judge Ken all of a sudden. But I do feel, since you asked me, how do I get over it? I think you have to take some responsibility to go, did I know that I knew that I knew that I knew? Was I absolutely certain that there was flirtation was going on? Mm-hmm. And while it may be inappropriate for a married person to be flirting with someone else, and I think it is that your whistle to blow?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it blew up in your face.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Because it was your word. It was someone else's word that became your word against your supervisor's word.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the supervisors denied it. And then his supervisors believed it. And then you've been reassigned.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to learn a lesson here and go, there are times in life where I need to stand and fight. And there are other times where it's not my business and I need to get over it. So I think you need to learn from this.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying you did anything wrong. I'm saying I don't know that you should have blown the whistle in this case unless you absolutely knew for a fact. Because even the way you said it to me, you went, and I had to nip that in the bud. Well, it's not your position to nip that in the bud.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
All right. Yep. So I think there's So we got to learn from our past mistakes. I think it's just a mistake. I think it was a professional misjudgment on your part. No big deal. Let's get over it. So get over it.
Yep.
I'm telling you, you didn't do anything wrong, but it wasn't a great move.
Yeah.
So now it's impacted you. So now we have to ask, based on this, how possible is it for me to actually get into the archiving work at this particular place? Because now I've created some tension, and it feels like on the surface that you aren't going to get that opportunity. Is that fair?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So now I'm looking somewhere else. I'm not sticking it out for 5 years. I would stay there until you found an archiving job. And if you can't get the experience to do the archiving job, well, now you're between a rock and a hard place. But I would look outwardly and go, can I do more archiving work? Or more importantly, can I go back and do the type of work that I was doing for another library or another institution? Because it was your dream job.
Yes.
So you know what the dream job is. I've not spent any time walking through why it's a dream job because you don't need me to do that. You can describe it to me and anybody else on paper and verbally why it was a dream job. Let's go see if we can find that somewhere else. But stay put right now because you need the finances. And I would do your best to eat humble pie every day you walk in.
Humble pie, right?
I mean that.
That's true.
I mean, I'm just picturing, I'm in the car and I get out one of those little triangle little things that my wife always cuts the pie with, and I'm getting me a scoop of humble pie and I'm eating it on the way in.
Yeah.
I think that's the best you can do to try to revive the situation. You've apologized, but that doesn't mean you've been forgiven, and it doesn't mean that you won't be limited. And so that's your reality. So I'd be looking for something somewhere else that is the dream job because you know what it looks like. You know how to find it. So go look for it. Until then, stay put and learn from this. Listen, folks, our morals aren't everybody else's morals. We still got to live. This is the Ken Coleman Show.
Thanks for listening to The Ken Coleman Show. For more, you can find the show on demand wherever you listen to podcasts and watch the show on YouTube. You can also find Ken across all social media by following @Ken Coleman.